right. I hope you got your fix. I know you like talking about this big picture, politically driven stuff, but we have some industry news to talk about, and let's shift
Actual
gears a
news.
little bit.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, I know. So right before we went on break, or maybe right as we went on break, so we hadn't had a chance to talk about it, the beginning-ish of December, Google announced some new announcements, actually a whole bunch of them, Gemini 2.0 and Project Astra. And I don't want to go into all of it, but I'm specifically referencing an article from the MIT Technology Review talking about the announcements and sort of gushing. The article title was Google's new Project Astra could be generative AI's killer app. And in there, I mean, I'm a student of headline writing, and this was a brilliant headline because it speaks to two really fundamental things that sort of underpin or this undercurrent within this whole sector. The first, as we talked about, is generative AI has loads and loads of potential, all of this power, and yet organizations have struggled to find ROI, have struggled, we talked about this in a number of different forms over the last year, have struggled to actually say, hey, X plus Y equals, this big outcome when we do this. And so it points to that this lack of this sort of killer app that something that drives demonstrable, easily quantifiable value and return has been elusive. And could this, in fact, be the thing that starts breaking that? And the second thing that it really points to is that Google, despite being Google, which is still shocking to me because they are Google, but Google has like never quite caught up.
Mhm.
And I start to wonder, are they going to be the Kodak that, invented the digital camera but failed to recognize its disruptive power of our modern era, right? Because they had teams developing AI technology long before most of the current major players, and yet they have just always struggled to sort of be relevant in these conversations. We spend a ton of time talking about it, and we're rarely talking about Google. So what is interesting about this is that Project Astra represents sort of the convergence of a whole bunch of different pieces of technology, and there's a whole lot to the announcement. Read the article, video generation, and all kinds of different things. But Project Astra is designed to be the sort of ubiquitous assistant. It can look at a picture, you can show it, turn your video camera on and show it. Here's a bottle of wine. Can you tell me if it's a good one? I'm having this for dinner. Will it go with it? I'm trying to figure out this recipe. What do I need for it? So it's this idea of this assistant that can use multimodal inputs, video, pictures, sound, everything, and you can have this interaction. And of course, the article points out that it was incredibly buggy. So it was,
Mhm.
on the one hand, incredibly powerful and shocking. And then also it kept dropping into speaking in Mandarin for no good reason, right? And so all these kind of weird parts to it. So I just felt it was really interesting on both aspects of this. One, indicative of where things are going, and two, indicative of how much Google continues to struggle to compete in this space.
Yeah, Google. I found the Astra project to be really interesting because it is multimodal and multi-sensory in nature, both looking at sight and sound, which are the two senses that computers are best at right now. And I think there's a very interesting niche area in here where the assistant is helping with short-term memory, actually. Being able to say, here's what you've done and looked at over the past 10 minutes of video, I believe the article said. And when you think about, hey, what was that thing I was just thinking about? Or what was that thing I was just looking at? Yeah, Astra could provide a very interesting primary use case in being able to help you with what were you trying to contextualize, or what were you just looking at, or what was that thing that you were just trying to do but weren't quite sure you were trying to do. But I will say my big caveat is that that's a very emerging type of primary technology that we don't quite understand how to really use. And I feel like that's been a problem for Alphabet when you look across a variety of things they've done, like Google Fiber, fantastic idea, but they could never really scale it past the city. Waymo, on the Alphabet side, fantastic idea, but right now it's only in a couple cities because it ends up being extremely compute and effort intensive to figure out how to map an entire city for automated cars. And this is going to be a similar thing. A very interesting technology with a lot of potential right now, but it has to be productized to more than a very specific use case. And I feel like that productization and scaling has been where Google has really struggled. The primary technology, fantastic, actually. Google has done a lot of primary technology work and research work to shape the AI world that we are currently in. But that productization, oh, I want Google
Well, I
to
mean, that's what
succeed, but
yeah, I
it's
mean, I think
hard.
that's part of their problem. They almost feel like a university now, like a research center where they're doing this stuff. Because I agree. I mean, but the challenge, and I have full faith that we will see this future at some point. But there's lots of pieces that are missing, right?
Mhm.
I'm not going to walk around with my phone and show it everything. I mean, who's going to do that, right? So that means I need some form of wearable device. I need the technology of glasses or something else to come. I need the ability to then have some kind of a screen that I can see or audio input without it being, like one of those people talking on the phone on loudspeaker or down the street. I mean, there's all these moving parts, and with what they're demonstrating, it puts the large in an LLM. I mean, it's like you need a massive data set to cover that much ground, and that right. It's the opposite of where we're seeing people go, which is where they're trying to create more narrow banded use cases so that they can bring down the inference cost and all those other pieces. So it's like it's this great theoretical exercise, and it's incredibly impressive. But to your point, it's like, is that something we're realistically going to bring to market, and who's going to pay for it? And so
Mhm.
I think those are the challenges, and this is where they have continued to struggle. And we'll see. But I did find it interesting to see that this particular, and look, I have a lot of respect for MIT Tech Review. So when they come out and say, "Is this the killer app?" Is this something that could they cross the chasm with this and actually be the thing that breaks through? I'm skeptical, but it was still encouraging and interesting. Um,
Mhm.